When Jake woke up, the bus was driving through a city that did not exist on any map. Outside the window, dark buildings slid past in silence. No signs, no numbers, no lights in the windows. Street lamps lined the road, but their yellow glow never reached the pavement. It simply hung in the air, like light painted onto the night. Jake blinked. He remembered getting on a normal city bus after work. It had been 11:40 p.m. He was heading home to Willow Street. Rain had been falling at the bus stop. Soft music played in his headphones. His phone had 3% battery left. He had taken a seat by the window. He had closed his eyes for 1 minute. And now the bus was full of strangers. Very strange strangers. An old woman in a black coat held an empty picture frame in both hands. A young man in a suit sat perfectly straight, as if waiting for a job interview, though his shirt was soaked through. A little girl with a red backpack swung her feet slowly above the floor, staring down at her shoes. No one spoke. No one looked at anyone else. Jake stood up. "Excuse me, where are we?" No one answered. The bus kept moving. At the front, the route display glowed with a single number. 13 beneath it, another message flickered. Next stop, the last one for those who never return home. Jake felt his fingers go cold. What kind of joke is this? The driver did not turn around. He wore an old dark uniform, and a metal badge with no name hung from his jacket. "Sit down, Mr. Miller," the driver said. "Your stop is still far away." Jake froze. "How do you know my name?" The driver said nothing. The bus turned smoothly onto a narrow road between two rows of dark houses. Jake pulled out his phone. The screen came on. 3%. No signal. But there was one new message. From Mom. "Jake, are you home yet?" It had been sent at 11:56 p.m. The clock on his phone now read 2:13 a.m. Jake typed quickly, "Mom, I'm on a bus." Something is wrong. The message would not send. Instead, new words appeared across the screen. Not in the chat. Over the screen itself. "Do not get off at the first stop." Jake looked up sharply. The bus began to slow down. Ahead, an old bus stop sign emerged from the darkness. The sign read, "The place where you lied." The doors hissed open. Cold fog entered the bus. The old woman with the empty picture frame stood. She walked slowly toward the exit. As she passed Jake, he saw that her eyes were full of tears. "Don't look at what it shows you," she whispered. "What?" She stepped off the bus. The doors closed behind her. Outside the window, Jake did not see a bus stop anymore. He saw his old high school. He was 16 again. He stood in the hallway while his best friend Lucas cried in front of him. "You said you wouldn't tell anyone," Lucas said. Jake backed away from the window. "No." The bus moved on. The school vanished. The dark street returned. Jake slowly sat back down. His heart was beating too fast. The little girl with the red backpack looked at him for the first time. "You're still alive," she said. Jake swallowed. "Are you?" The girl did not answer. She only looked back down at the floor. At the front of the bus, the driver's voice sounded calm, almost ordinary. "Next stop in 7 minutes. The route display changed. Stop 2, what you never got to say." Jake understood one thing. This bus was not driving through the city. It was driving through his life. And if he had fallen asleep on a normal bus, where was his body now? The bus kept moving. No one spoke. The wheels rolled with a steady rhythm, although Jake was almost certain there was no real road beneath them anymore. Outside the window trees, then fog, then rows of silent houses. The scenery changed too quickly to be real. It felt as though the bus was driving through fragments of forgotten memories. Jake looked around again. There were 11 passengers. He counted twice. 11, including himself 12. But the route number was 13. Something didn't add up. A quiet voice interrupted his thoughts. "You're counting too?" Jake turned. The young man in the soaked business suit was looking directly at him. He was the first passenger to speak willingly. "Yeah," Jake answered. "There are 12 of us." The man smiled sadly. "For now." "What does that mean?" "When someone gets off," he paused, "someone else always gets on." A chill ran down Jake's spine. "Where do they go?" The man stared out the window. "That depends on what they did while they were alive." "You've got to be kidding." "I wish I was." Jake hesitated. "What's your name?" "Oliver." "How long have you been here?" Oliver laughed softly. It wasn't a happy laugh. "No one here knows how much time has passed. It could be a minute. Or," he nodded toward an old man sitting near the back exit. "He says he's been riding for 40 years. Jake looked. The old man hadn't moved once. His eyes remained closed. An old hat rested on his knees. Is he alive? Oliver shrugged. I honestly don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Here, he sighed. It doesn't matter. The bus suddenly bounced. The overhead lights flickered. The driver's calm voice echoed through the cabin. Prepare yourselves. 2 minutes until the next stop. Every passenger raised their head at exactly the same moment. As though they had heard a signal Jake couldn't. Even the little girl with the red backpack stopped swinging her legs. She stared straight ahead. Jake noticed something else. Every passenger clung tightly to one object. Oliver held a soaked briefcase. The old man held his hat. A young woman near the front held a bouquet of dried white roses. A mechanic gripped a rusty wrench. No one ever set their object down. Why are they holding those things? Jake whispered. Oliver answered quietly. Because they were the last things they touched. Jake's heartbeat skipped. Before? Oliver nodded. Before they died. Silence filled the bus. The driver spoke again without turning around. Passengers, please do not look out the windows after the bus stops. The people outside may look familiar. That only helps the bus. Jake stood. What does that even mean? The driver ignored him. The bus began slowing. The display changed. Stop 2. What you never said. A strange pressure filled Jake's ears. As if the bus were descending beneath the earth. The air became colder. Outside, there was no road anymore. Only thick white fog. Then a house slowly appeared. Jake stopped breathing. He knew that house. Every inch of it. His grandfather's house. The old porch. The wooden steps. The porch swing. The last time he had seen it was 10 years ago. At the funeral, the front door slowly opened. His grandfather stepped outside. Alive. Smiling. Looking directly at Jake. Jakey, the bus came to a complete stop. The doors began to open. And for the first time Jake truly wanted to step outside. Jakey, his grandfather's voice sounded exactly the way Jake remembered it. Warm. A little rough, with that soft laugh hiding at the end of every word. Jake stepped toward the open doors. Don't get off, Oliver whispered. That's my grandfather. No. That's what the bus wants you to see. Outside stood the house where Jake had spent every summer until he was 12. He remembered the smell of apple pie, the old radio in the kitchen, and the wooden stairs that always creaked on the 3rd step. His grandfather stood on the porch, smiling. You never said goodbye, he said. The words hit Jake harder than a scream. Jake had not been there when his grandfather died. He had ignored his mother's call that night. He told himself he would visit tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. I wanted to, Jake whispered. Then step outside, his grandfather said. Say it now. Jake felt his feet moving on their own, one step, then another. He was almost at the bus doors when the little girl with the red backpack grabbed his sleeve. If you get off at someone else's stop, you stay there instead of them. Jake looked at her. Instead of who? She pointed toward the old man with the hat. The man slowly raised his head. His eyes were open. This is my stop, he said. The bus went silent. Even the engine stopped humming. The old man stood. He moved slowly down the aisle, holding his hat with both hands. As he passed Jake, he whispered, never trust the people you loved. Here, they always say exactly what you want to hear. The old man stepped outside. The doors closed. The house beyond the window darkened. Jake's grandfather was no longer smiling. His face became empty. Wrong. And Jake understood. The thing on the porch was not his grandfather. It was something that had learned to wear his memory like a mask. The bus moved on. In the old man's seat, a new passenger now sat. A young woman in a hospital gown. She held nothing in her arms, wrapped in a white blanket, and rocked it gently. How many stops are there? Jake asked the driver. The driver did not answer right away. As many as necessary. For what? To decide, Mr. Miller. Decide what? For the first time, the driver looked at him through the mirror. His eyes were dark, but not dead, only tired. Whether you deserve to go home. The display flashed with a new message. Stop 3, the person you left behind. Oliver whispered, now it really begins. Stop 3, the person you left behind. The message blinked on the display for several seconds before fading away. Jake kept his eyes on the driver. What does that mean? He asked. The driver stared at the road. Every passenger has someone they left behind. I didn't leave anyone. Oliver gave a quiet laugh. Everyone says that at first. Jake turned to him. Who did you leave? Oliver tightened his grip on the soaked briefcase. My fiancée. The bus became even quieter. I was driving to her on our wedding day, he said. Rain. slick roads. My phone kept ringing. She was waiting for me at the church. He looked out the window. I never made it. Jake didn't know what to say. The bus lurched forward. Fog gathered outside the windows again. Then the fog became a street. A normal street. Wet pavement, traffic lights, storefronts. Jake froze. I know this place. Oliver said nothing. The bus was slowing down ahead. Stood a small coffee shop with a blue sign. And near the entrance stood a young woman. Dark hair, yellow raincoat, hands in her pockets. Jake felt his chest tighten. Emma. Oliver looked at him. You know her? Jake couldn't speak. Emma was his ex-girlfriend. The only person who had ever told him, you disappear every time someone truly needs you. They had broken up 2 years ago. Not because of betrayal. Not because of some huge fight. Because of silence. She had asked him to come over the night her father was taken to the hospital. Jake said he would. But he didn't. He stayed home, staring at the ceiling, telling himself he wouldn't know how to help. The next morning, she stopped answering his messages. The bus stopped. The doors opened. Emma raised her eyes. She was looking directly at him. Jake, she said, will you show up this time? Jake stepped forward. Oliver grabbed his arm. That isn't her. You don't know that. I do. No, you don't. Jake pulled free. The driver said, a passenger may exit if he believes this is his stop. And what happens? Jake asked. The driver answered calmly. The road decides. Emma stood in the rain. She looked so real that Jake could almost smell her perfume from inside the bus. You always leave people, she said. But you can fix this one. Jake stood at the open doors. One step, and he would be outside. The little girl with the red backpack whispered. She isn't asking you to come, she's asking you to stay. Jake looked at Emma. I'm sorry, he said. I should have been there. Emma tilted her head. Then get off. No. Her face changed. Only for a second. Her smile stretched too wide. Her eyes went empty. Jake stepped back. I'm sorry, he repeated. But I'm not staying here. The doors hissed shut. Emma slammed both hands against the glass. For the first time, her voice was no longer human. You always run. The bus moved on. The coffee shop vanished into the fog. Jake collapsed into his seat. He was shaking. Oliver nodded. You did the right thing. Was she real? Oliver was silent for a long moment. The feeling was real, she wasn't. A new message flashed across the display. Passenger Jake Miller, first choice recorded. Jake read it slowly. First choice? The driver said, you will have 3 Mr. Miller. And if I choose wrong? The driver did not answer right away. Then he said, then the bus will find a seat for you. At that moment, the little girl with the red backpack whispered, it already found mine. It already found mine, said the little girl with the red backpack. Jake slowly turned toward her. What do you mean? She wasn't looking at him. She was staring down at her shoes. I wasn't supposed to get on that bus. What bus? The girl finally raised her eyes. This one. The air inside the bus seemed to grow colder. What's your name? Jake asked. Lily. Oliver immediately spoke up. Don't ask her. Why? Because if she remembers too much, her stop comes sooner. Lily gave a small sad smile. It's coming anyway. The bus moved through thick fog. There were no houses outside anymore. No roads, no streetlights. Only a gray emptiness where shadows sometimes flickered and vanished. Jake looked at the driver. She's a kid. Why is she here? The driver was silent for a long time. Then he said, the bus does not ask your age. Then what does it ask? Whether someone is still holding on to you. Jake didn't understand. Lily explained quietly, if someone in the real world is still calling you back, you have a chance. And if no one is, she looked out the window. Then you get off. The display flashed with a new message. Stop 4, the one who still calls. Jake pulled out his phone. 1% battery. A message from his mother was on the screen. Jake, please answer. The police said they found the bus. He froze. They found the bus. His fingers went numb. He opened the chat and saw several more messages. You weren't inside. Your backpack was there. Your phone says you're online. Jake, where are you? His throat tightened. They're looking for me, he whispered. Oliver looked at the phone. Then hold on to that. To what? Her voice. The bus began to slow down. Outside the window, a hospital room appeared. Jake saw himself lying in the bed, pale, motionless, wires attached to his arm. His mother sat beside him, holding his hand and crying. Jake stood so fast he almost fell. "That's me," the driver said. "Second choice, Mr. Miller." The bus doors opened. The hospital room waited outside. His mother raised her head as if she sensed him. "Jake," she whispered. He stepped toward the doors. Oliver grabbed his shoulder. "Careful, this one might be real." "Why is that bad?" "Because real things hurt more." Jake stared at his mother. She spoke through tears. "Please son, if you can hear me, come back." The driver said, "If you step out now, you may wake up." Jake turned. You may wake up. And the other option? You may remain between. What does that mean?" The driver did not answer. Lily whispered, "This is a stop for people who are still loved." Jake looked at his body in the hospital bed, then at his mother, then at the passengers on the bus. "What about them?" he asked. "Did they get this chance too?" Oliver lowered his eyes. "Some did." "Did you?" Oliver didn't answer. The bus hummed softly, the doors waited. His mother squeezed his hand in the hospital room. "Jake, don't go." Then the driver's voice became sharper. "The choice must be made now." Jake put one foot on the step. The hospital became brighter. He heard the monitor beeping, smelled antiseptic, felt the warmth of his mother's hand. And then, behind him, Lily said, "If you leave now, the bus takes someone else in your place." Jake froze. "Who?" She looked at his phone. A new message appeared. "From Mom. I would give anything to have you back." Jake understood. The bus did not let people go without payment. Slowly, he pulled his foot back. "No." The doors shuddered. The driver looked at him in the mirror. "You refuse your return? If the price is her, then yes." The hospital room beyond the doors darkened. His mother's voice turned into a scream. "Jake." The doors closed. The bus moved on. A new message appeared on the display, "Second choice recorded." Oliver stared at him strangely. "You refused home." "I refused the trade." For the first time, Lily truly smiled. "Then you still have a chance." Jake sat down, breathing hard. "What's the third choice?" No one answered. Only the driver spoke softly. "The last stop never asks whether you want to live." A pause. "It asks who you are willing to stay for." The bus disappeared into darkness once again. This time even the fog was gone. Nothing existed outside the windows. No sky, no ground, only endless blackness. Jake looked at his phone. The screen went dark. The battery had finally died. Now he was alone. Alone with people who might not have been alive for a very long time. A loud click echoed through the cabin. The driver pressed a switch. An old yellow light flickered above his seat. "Attention, passengers. 2 stops remain before the final route." No one moved. Oliver sighed deeply. "He never calls it the last stop," he whispered. "Why?" "Because that's when everyone panics." Jake swallowed. "You know what's coming?" "A little." "Tell me." Oliver stayed silent for almost a minute. Then he spoke quietly. "For the last 2 years or maybe 20, time doesn't work here. I've tried to remember the rules." Jake leaned closer. "What rules?" "The first one, never look behind you when the bus doors are open. The second, never take anything from a stop. And the third?" Oliver looked directly into Jake's eyes. "If the driver calls your full name, don't answer." Jake frowned. "Why?" "Because then you'll agree to stay." The bus suddenly slowed. The display lit up. "Stop 5, the truth you hide from yourself." Every passenger lowered their head at once. Lily closed her eyes. Even the driver removed his hands from the wheel. The bus kept moving by itself. Ahead, enormous gates slowly opened. Beyond them, there was no city, no people, only an endless line of buses, dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands, every one marked with the number 13. Some stood empty, others were full. Some were rusted with age, others looked brand new. But every single one was waiting. "My God," Jake whispered. "Don't stare too long," Oliver said. "Why?" "They'll start looking back." Jake turned away. Too late. Every passenger inside the nearest bus turned their heads at the exact same moment, and looked directly at him. Their eyes were completely black. The gates closed. Lily began crying softly. "They're counting." "Counting what?" "Empty seats." Silence filled the cabin then. For the first time the driver switched off the engine. The bus kept moving, but the engine was dead. The wheels no longer touched the road. They floated slowly above a bottomless abyss. "We're not driving anymore," Jake whispered. The driver answered calmly. "No, we're arriving." The display changed one final time. "Final stop in 10 minutes." Every passenger began whispering the same sentence. Quietly at first, then louder. "Don't listen to the one behind the wheel. Don't listen to the one behind the wheel. Don't listen to the one behind the wheel." Jake slowly looked up. The driver was smiling, for the first time since the journey had begun, and that smile was more terrifying than anything Jake had seen all night. The driver's smile never disappeared. It wasn't evil. If anything, it looked almost sad. "Are you afraid of me, Mr. Miller?" Jake didn't answer. The passengers continued whispering. "Don't listen to him." Lily suddenly looked up. "He's not lying." The whispering stopped instantly. Oliver turned toward her. "Lily, enough." She stood for the first time. "They all think he's the monster. They're wrong." The driver smiled gratefully. Jake felt everything he believed beginning to fall apart. "If you're not the evil one, who is?" The driver pointed through the windshield. Ahead, there was no road, only an endless station. Thousands of platforms, thousands of buses, millions of people waiting. Some crying, some laughing, some simply staring into nothing. What is this place? A crossing. Between what? Between what was, and what comes next? The bus rolled onto a platform. The display showed only 2 words. Final stop. The doors stayed closed. For the first time, the driver stood up. He was simply an old man. Gray hair, tired eyes, nothing supernatural, nothing monstrous. Jake Miller. For the first time, he spoke Jake's full name. Jake almost answered, then remembered Oliver's warning. He stayed silent. The driver nodded. "Good, you remembered." One final question. Everything around them disappeared. Only Jake and the driver remained. 3 stops. 3 choices. The first, you refuse to live in the past. The second, you refuse to buy life with someone else's. Lily smiled. The third, the driver stepped closer. Are you willing to wake up, knowing you may never see anyone on this bus again? Jake looked around. Oliver smiled quietly. Lily waved. The young mother now held a real baby. The old woman with the frame was gone. Her seat was empty. "If I leave, what happens to all of you?" Oliver answered. "We keep riding." "And that's the end?" "No, someday we'll let someone else go. And maybe, the bus will let us go too." Jake closed his eyes. He remembered his mother. The rain. Emma. His grandfather. Then he understood. The scariest part of the journey had never been death. It was choice. Every passenger had chosen their destination. Jake looked at the driver. "I want to go home." The driver smiled. A real smile. "Then it's time to wake up." He handed Jake an old bus ticket. Only 2 words were printed on it. "One way." Is this a ticket? No, it's a memory. Jake touched it. The entire world shattered. The world shattered. First, the floor of the bus disappeared. Then the seats, then the voices. Jake was falling through absolute darkness. There was no sound. No time, no ground beneath him, only one voice. His mother's. "Jake, please, come back." Then beep, beep, beep. A sharp pain exploded through his chest. Jake's eyes flew open. Blinding white light flooded his vision. He was lying in a hospital bed. Doctors surrounded him. "He's awake. Pulses stable. Get his mother." Jake tried to speak. Only a weak gasp escaped his lips. A few seconds later, the door burst open. His mother rushed inside. She was crying and laughing at the same time. "You came back." She wrapped her arms around him. Jake hugged her as tightly as he could. For the first time in years he cried without trying to hide it. Several days later, the police explained what had happened. The city bus he had boarded that rainy night had crashed after the driver suffered a fatal heart attack. The accident had sent the bus into a concrete barrier. Several passengers had died instantly. Jake had been thrown through an emergency window. Paramedics found him unconscious several yards away. His heart had stopped for nearly 3 minutes. "You were incredibly lucky," every doctor told him. Jake only nodded. Luck had nothing to do with it. Life slowly returned to normal. Weeks passed. The bruises healed. The nightmares became less frequent. He called Emma. For the first time in years, they talked honestly. Not about the past, about forgiveness. He visited his mother every weekend. He answered every phone call. He stopped saying, "I'll do it tomorrow." Because now he knew sometimes there isn't a tomorrow, but every single night before falling asleep, he thought about bus number 13, about Oliver, about Lily, about the passengers who kept riding. He often wondered if they had ever reached their own final stop, or if they were still traveling through endless darkness, waiting for someone else to make the right choice. One cold autumn evening, almost a year later, Jake was walking home after work. It had started raining again. The streets looked exactly the way they had that night. As he passed an old bus stop, a bus slowly pulled up beside the curb. Dark gray, old, weathered. The route display glowed softly, 13, Jake froze. His heartbeat echoed in his ears. The doors opened, behind the wheel sat a different driver. Younger, clean-shaven, completely ordinary. Inside were everyday passengers. A college student wearing headphones, an elderly couple, a man holding grocery bags. Nothing unusual. Jake let out a nervous laugh. It was just a dream, he whispered. The doors closed, the bus drove away. Jake smiled to himself. Then, just before it disappeared around the corner, he saw someone sitting in the very last seat. A little girl, a red backpack. Lily. She was looking directly at him. She smiled. Slowly she lifted her hand, and waved. The bus vanished behind the corner. Jake ran after it. His footsteps echoed through the empty street. He reached the intersection only seconds later. Nothing. No bus, no headlights, no engine, no tire tracks. Just silence. Years passed. Jake never saw bus No. 13 again. He got married. He became a father. He never ignored another phone call. Never postponed another apology. Never left without saying goodbye. Whenever someone told him, "I'll do it tomorrow," or "There's always more time," Jake would simply smile and answer, "Don't wait for the next stop, because you never know if it will be your last." Epilogue. That same night, far beyond any road shown on a map, a weathered gray bus rolled slowly through endless fog. The driver opened an old leather-bound ledger. He turned to a page marked Jake Miller. Across the name was a single black line. Completed. The driver quietly closed the book. For the first time in a very long while he smiled. Ahead, another lonely bus stop emerged from the mist. Its sign read, "The one who never got to say goodbye." The bus came to a gentle stop. The doors slowly opened. A young man stepped aboard, confused and breathing hard. He looked around at the silent passengers. "Excuse me, does this bus go downtown?" Oliver closed his eyes. Lily lowered her head. The driver looked into the mirror and answered in the same calm voice he had used countless times before. "Please, have a seat. It's a long ride before your stop." The doors closed, the route display flickered. 13, the bus disappeared into the darkness, as though it had never been there at all.